So the giving and ethical living are pretty extensive, and here we get a little bit more compact. So we're moving. Did everybody get a reading for today? Thank you. Thank you to Jenny for making copies. So these are the actions that undermine the perfection of patience. And this is not in your reading, but a way to sum this up, to remember, there's 4 of them, okay, is turn the other cheek, greet the other person with an open heart, forgive, and really look at your own patterns of anger. This is my own personal way to just think about these 4 practices in a way that I feel like I can keep them really with me. So turn the other cheek, greet the other person with an open heart, forgive, and really get personal with your own anger, get realistic about what's happening with your relationship to anger. You can find your own ways to paraphrase these practices in a way that is meaningful for you, but those are helpful for me. And of course, they're stated in the negative, so maybe the negative way you can think of that is that what you wouldn't want to be doing is strengthening reactive habits, where you're just reacting in your own negative way. So you want to stop strengthening your reactive habits. You want to stop pushing away people that you don't like and that don't like you. You want to stop holding grudges and not forgiving other people. And you want to stop ignoring your anger or pushing your anger away, okay? Repressing, not expressing. We're not going to talk about expressing our anger, but you want to cease repressing your anger. So the opposite of repressing is not expressing, okay, in this practice. We seek not to repress. We seek to go in and process and develop a meaningful relationship to our anger, which is different than just, normally you think, well, I don't want to repress, so I'm just going to throw it out, okay? Not helpful. So here are the 4 in the way they're traditionally stated. Losing the 4 points of the practice. So this means that you would lose the 4 points of the practice if you did respond in kind when someone scolds you, when someone is angry with you, when someone hits you or makes some physical movement towards you, or someone criticizes you. Okay, so we want to try not to do that. And again, this is about not recreating the causes and looking at what you're modeling. So it's so interesting. I mean, karma is very, it's very visible when you start to tune into these things. So someone is angry, and what is the first instinct? The first instinct is you meet that energy. You've just recreated the cause, right? Here's the effect, you meet it with the cause. So in the compassionate side of karma is that it shows itself so clearly. The cause and the effect resemble each other. Someone criticizes you, what is your instinct? Your instinct is to meet the effect with the cause. The effect draws the cause forward. And then, of course, we'll create that in the future. So it takes a lot of spiritual power when someone's criticizing you to go, I'm not going to model that. I don't accept that model. I'm going to create a different model. I'm not going to criticize back. And at the beginning level of these practices, most of it is just shut up. Like for years and years and years, just try to not say anything, and try not to start moving your body around in a way that's like, responding in kind. So this is, one of the beautiful blessings of meditation is if you practice on your own, in a confined area, sitting quietly and being silent. You create that model for yourself, so when these things come up, you can still your body, still your voice, and let whatever comes and deal with your mind internally, okay? And take some space and think, how do I want to be? What is the cause? What's the effect? How am I going to respond to this, right? If, take a walk if you need to take a walk. Remove yourself from the situation. In the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, he goes through it and he says, run away, Like the base level is sort of like just run away. If you can't control your body, you can't control your speech, get out of the room, go somewhere, okay? And out of love for the other person, right, and for yourself. Second level is, he says, you sit like a bump on a log. And that's you just take it, And the higher level, the level of the bodhisattva is you've let go of your attachment to yourself, because who's responding in kind? The self, right? Because you're talking about me. You're angry at me. You're trying to harm me. It's me, always, right? So you've let go of your attachment to that me to such a degree that you can go, what's going on with you? I feel some compassion for you. You seem really angry right now. You're trying to punch me. You must be upset. No, literally, it's like, what's going on? Can I do something to help you? And it's probably not useful if you try to hit me. It's probably, why are you speaking to me that way? Or, but you would do it in a way that serves them, you see? So they're not saying, oh, so go ahead and let the person criticize you, go ahead and let the person smack you, in the sense like you take it like somehow that's helpful for them. But they're saying if you can't meet them compassionately, do not respond in kind. Don't fool yourself and think that you could somehow have anger in your heart and speak or act and not have that anger come out in your actions. It will come out. So you have to still that. Okay, the enemy of patience is anger. The main enemy of patience is anger. So if you've lost your patience, there's anger there. And certainly there's a self there. There's the suffering self. And real patience, by the way, as it's described in the text, which I always find a little bit depressing because I have to ask myself if I have any patience at all, is not that someone provokes you and you don't respond. It's that you're not even provoked. So someone does something that in the past, or you could identify might be provoking, which by the way is anything, because why are we upset by anything, right? I mean, someone could just like sit down in a certain way and you're like, oh my God, why are they sitting like that? I mean, we get so upset about the most ridiculous things most of the time, right? So someone does something that you could identify might upset you and you're just not upset. So in that sense, think about as you go through the day, all of the things that people are doing that are not upsetting you, and celebrate those. Because if you had different karma, those things would upset you. You see? Because it really doesn't matter what they're doing. Someone could be punching you, and it could, like, if you have a brother, if you grew up with did anybody grow up with a brother or sister? Yeah, were you ever like hit by your brother or sister? Or like sometimes you have those fights and they're hitting you, but like you're playing or something, right? I mean, sometimes they hit you and you're not so happy, right? Or, or like I was just, I'm staying at Rick and Lindsay's for the nights that I'm in LA, and they have this cat, Molly. And Molly is such a lover. When you first meet Molly, you're like, oh, you're such a lover. She's like, purr, purr, and she like climbs up your face and like nips your face. And you're like, oh, that's so sweet, you're a lovely cat. And then after an hour, you're like, oh my God, Molly, please stop. Like I'd like to have some skin left. And, but in that first part, it's like, oh, that's playful, it's sweet, But if you had a different karma in your mind, immediately the cat would come towards you and you go, you're annoying me, don't come towards me, right? So we can recognize as we go through our day, again, just by being grateful, we're recognizing our level of patience of all the things that aren't bothering us all the time, which are a huge amount, actually. If you've made it through the last 2.5 hours and had any good moments of not being completely afflicted, there's your patience. There's your patience, okay? You have some serious karma in your being of overcoming your anger, okay? What's the word I'm looking for when something is blown out into kind of a cartoon? I guess like the cartoon version of an angry person is that everything makes them angry all the time. You know, and maybe you've known people who sort of appear like this. They're just always bothered by something. That's a horrible state to live in. That's a person who has no patience. They don't have any breath in their life where they're not being bothered by something. And one of the reasons why patience is one of the most challenging perfections to work with is that, again, as we get more subtle with ourselves, we start to see more and more sort of how we are bothered constantly at more and more subtle levels. But to start with, and then you can have some joyful effort in how you're working with that. But to start with, just celebrate all the things that aren't bothering you. If you have some chocolate and the chocolate's great, fantastic. There's patience there, okay? So you don't actually get points for getting angry and like not responding. That's not the deepest form of patience, okay? The deepest form of patience is when you've removed the action from your mind entirely to get bothered. But on the way there, we do the best we can. And part of that is by creating a new model, where when the thing rises that annoys us, we go, this is not patience, I'm annoyed. Or I'm downright angry, or whatever it is. I'm not going to recreate the model. I'm going to create a model of patience, which I'm going to just pretend right now because I don't actually have patience right now. But I'd like to create that model, so I'm going to pretend in an enlightened way. This is enlightened pretending, okay? Where you go, all right, I'm going to act like I'm not bothered, because that's the model that I would like to have. It's not pleasing for me to be bothered. I'm not enjoying myself at all being bothered. So why would I want to recreate that model, right? Like enlightened self-interest. So you go, okay, I'm going to sit like a bump in a log. I'm going to act like I'm not bothered and leave the room, you know? Or at a more advanced level, I'm going to turn my attention to the other person and see if I can help them. And then if you're able to do that, you're really close to not being bothered, actually, because that means you're able to put down whatever trigger came up in you enough that you could put your focus on the other person. And then you can really start to rejoice. You're like, oh, okay, I'm really close now to just not being concerned at all by what they do. I think it's helpful as you go through your day, again, to notice for yourself what triggers you, what doesn't, and sort of look at the absurdity of it and look at how it's really not rational and it's not consistent. We have some fantasy that it's consistent, but it's really not. You know, if you're in a bad mood, everything could bother you. If you're in a good mood, nothing can bother you, right? Sometimes someone annoys you, sometimes they don't. And we can then tune into how that's true for other people as well. And this is why when you're in personal relationships, which you're all in, you know, close, intimate relationships with people, friends, family, lovers, etc., it's not a rational space. You can't deal with it like, oh, you said this and I said this and this is why I'm upset because you said this. That's not why you're upset. They could have said the same thing and you would have been like, I love you so much, in another moment. But we get caught up in this minutia of these false causes, and we waste so much time. We waste so much of our time. And if you look at what happens when you're angry, you know, what happens? You're going through your day, and you're like, well, you said this, and then I'm going to say this, but I'm going to work on, I'm going to call you, I'm going to write you an email. It's like this whole thing is going on, right? It's a waste of your life. It is literally wasting your life. So the only way to undercut that is to get really clear that it's not coming from that kind of thinking level, that we are like acting, pretending that it is, okay? It's just not. You know, if it was, actually it would be a lot easier, because you would just say to the person, don't ever say that to me, and I would never get upset. Or you would know, I will never ever say something like that to you again, and you will never ever get upset. You know, or I will never, you know, put the color red in front of you, and you know, then it will clear the space somehow. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Okay. So these are clear, right? Someone scolds you, gets angry with you, hits you, criticizes you, all right? And this is not so much about like prolonged stuff. It's about that immediate model that rises that we were talking about. Okay. So that's the one where I was saying turn the other cheek. For me, I just think turn the other cheek. That's essentially what it comes down to. You know, I just go, I'm not going to respond to this. You know, like you can keep coming, and I'm not going to go sagittal. Do you guys know that these are the different planes? There's like horizontal, vertical, sagittal goes like this. When you are provoked, you go sagittal. You go right into the person. And so the turn the other cheek is like, I'll go horizontal. I'll just try to turn away from that plane of engagement that I want to go towards right now. Okay? The next one is simply ignoring those who are angry. So I talk about this as greeting other people with an open heart, so that you move towards people who are going through this affliction. And particularly this is people who are angry with you. So it is not helpful for them to be angry with you. Any anger creates negative movement, negative model and suffering, your anger or another person's anger. So if someone's angry with you, and because you're afraid of dealing with it, or you don't want to be exposed, or you want to be liked, or whatever all the reasons are, and so you just ignore it. You just push them away, you just don't deal with it, you just don't talk about it. That's not helping anyone. So this vow is about that. The exceptions is if you think the person will be more angry by you bringing it up. So sometimes you can sense, the person has a short fuse and they'll create more negative karma for themselves if you engage them in that situation. So you have to sort of judge it. If you want to discredit a wrong spiritual teaching, this is another one that I'm sort of thinking about, like, well, that would be actually more on the positive end if you were somehow trying to right something that seemed to be incorrect. If there's a person you think is doing evil things, and if you apologize to them, people would see you and think you condone it. So this is another one of what's the greater good. And these last two, and as many of the vows as I'm sure you're getting hip to, these were created within a monastic context and among spiritual practitioners. These vows were often taken by people who were living in monasteries where all the other people they were interacting with also had the vows, or also were dealing with spiritual practices. And so they're very specific. There's another way they break down the vows are called natural vows and prescribed vows. And natural vows are vows that you can see in all spiritual traditions across the board, like don't kill, don't steal, don't commit adultery, these basic ethics, okay? And then there are vows that are very particular to the historical Buddhist time. We have these. We have them in the Bodhisattva vows. We have them across the board. When I was thinking about becoming a nun, and I got to the point where I was looking at the nuns' vows, very seriously, and I looked at them, and to be honest, the majority of them were those type of prescribed vows. They were like, don't cover the rice when the other rice pot is boiling. Don't put cloth over here, make sure you put it over there. They all had to deal with living in a nunnery, with living in a monastery. Because in that situation, you would be harming other people. Like if you covered the pot of rice before the other one, you'd ruin the meal for the night, and you only have so much rice or something like that, right? So we have to sort of discern here as we're looking at these, where they're coming from. And then ask ourselves, well, how does that apply to me? How can I think about it in my current contemporary context? Next one is refusing to forgive another person when they apologize. So this is the one I was saying, forgiving, right? And when you're angry with someone, it's very difficult to forgive them. So again, you can think about whenever you're angry, is it helping you to be angry? Are you having a good time? And and the anger fuels on anger. So the anger sort of is having its own little party, and is going like, no, we shouldn't forgive. We should think about how angry we are. We should keep, the anger wants to stay alive. So the enlightened part of yourself needs to look at that and go, we shouldn't put some fuel on something that's causing us so much pain. And one of the biggest ways to just cut anger at the base is just to forgive. Say, I forgive you. Remove the object that the anger is feeding on. That's what forgiveness is. Because anger is going, I'm angry at you, you. So remove you. You go, there's no one to be angry at. I forgive them. And then anger's sort of like, it'll probably find something else, But if you keep removing the object, eventually it's just going to fizzle out. It doesn't have anything to feed on. It feeds on the object of its affliction, okay? So I'm not suggesting that forgiveness is simple. Anyone who's tried to forgive anyone that, you know, they feel like has really hurt them or whatever it is not easy. But again, the first part of the practice is to sort of pretend and just say, I forgive you. You know, speak it out loud or say it to yourself, or imagine, what would it be like if I forgive this person? What would it be like if I dropped this? And just experiment with it, you know, until you get to the place where you can honestly say, I forgive you. You can recognize that the anger is not coming from that object, it's coming from you. So you can say, I forgive you because actually you have nothing to do with this. This is my karma. And you could have done the same thing and I could have not been bothered. So it's not rational that the object is the cause of your anger. So when you get clear on that, I've found, now that I'm clear on that, it's very easy actually to forgive at that level. I just go, I forgive you. You have nothing to do with this. This is my affliction. And then I have to deal with the object that the anger is feeding on internally, which is, you know, some kind of karmic myself. It's still attaching to something. So at the highest level of forgiveness, you have to forgive yourself. You got to forgive the other, and you got to forgive yourself for the cause of the anger in the first place. Okay? Forgiveness is key. Again, exceptions. I'm thinking about these exceptions a bit, but if the apology is insincere or improper in some way, so, you know, this is getting really technical. Like, okay, if the person asks for an apology but it's not sincere, you know, you could technically say, I don't forgive you, because you're not sincerely asking for an apology. But if you were really doing your practice, you would have already forgiven them. And then you might be trying to help them skillfully by pointing out that they're not really asking for an apology, actually. You know, that they're just opening another door for anger in the way that they're asking or something. Or out of pure compassion, you hope to help them by teaching them a lesson. So again, this would actually be another way to keep the vow. So you appear not to forgive the person because you think that would be the quickest way for them to wake up to the fact that they're harming themselves through anger. You got to go to work. Help all the beings work their bodies around. You know, sometimes this happens where I find this particularly with people who are really close to me sometimes, where if they're like, there's a sort of, and I see it because I can see it in myself, there's a sort of feeling like, well, I can be more liberal with this person because they love me. So, you know, I can be angry or I can do something and like they'll just forgive me. Like somehow it's okay. You know, we're much crueler to the people who are close to us than people we've never met, actually. And so, you know, sometimes I find it helpful, and you know, it's for myself to really wake up and go, well, what if I just don't actually, you know, come back and say, it's fine, I love you. You know, what if you create the possibility to notice what it would be to actually be separated from that person? So you can like wake up and see how horrible that would be. You know, maybe clean up your actions a little bit. And not take it for granted that they're just going to be there. So you can just blow your steam all around them and big deal, right? And then the last one in patience is allowing thoughts of anger to go on. So this is, again, that you are not dealing with your own habits, that you're not really looking at your own anger, that you are, if we went back to those 4 chains, like you're enjoying being angry, you're not really thinking it's wrong, you're just feeding it, just letting it keep going. And we do this in all kinds of subtle and not so subtle ways. And it harms us. I mean, that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. The reason why patience is pulled out as a perfection is that anger is one of the most harmful afflictions you can have. And so out of ethics, it singles out anger. So giving deals with desire, with attachment. Try to lessen attachment. Ethical life is dealing with all kinds of afflictions. And then out of all those afflictions, you go, let's really look at anger, because that's really hurting you. Out of all these others, if you could deal with anger, if you could deal with the ill will, you see, that's one of the 2 we talked about. you'd be doing really well, okay? So those are the 4 of patience: turning the other cheek, forgiving, trying to communicate with those who are angry with you in a meaningful way, and in general opening your heart, because anytime you feel separate from someone, there's some kind of anger there, some kind of separation, and dealing with your own anger. And one way to do that is to study all the teachings on patience. You can go online to mahasukha.org, download hours and hours of teachings on practices for how to overcome anger and deal with patience, and try to really put those into play in your life. I think I might have mentioned last week, but and many of you know, but just to review, that there are 2 kinds of anger. There's hot anger and cold anger, right? So identify for yourself what your primary form of anger is. So are you someone who gets really like worked up and gets really loud and sort of blows off steam and then is sort of over it? Or are you someone who sits on things in a kind of repressed way, you know, and it comes out by distancing yourself from others, by being cold to others? Both are equally harming, but they express themselves in different ways. And sometimes people that go towards the cold anger have a misunderstanding and think, no, I'm not an angry person, because I'm not running around and yelling at everyone. But meanwhile, they're sitting on all kinds of strata of judgments and, you know, grudges that they're sitting on, and just as angry, you know, if not more. Okay. So now we're going to go on to the perfection of joyful effort. I was going to tell you a story, but maybe I'll start next class with a story, because I'd like to get through these. So the 3 practices that go with joyful effort are thinking about, this is my way of sort of thinking about them, and you can find the words for yourself. So asking yourself, what would be better for others? What is going to support the other person's process in the best way? And another way to think of this is, how am I relating to others? Am I relating to others for my own gain, or am I relating to them in a way that's open and helpful for them? Okay, that's the first practice. And then number 2 is, am I dealing with my laziness, as we talked about last week? Am I looking at my habits of laziness in the 3 forms they come? Do you remember them? What are they? Sloth, yep. Comfort orientation, yep. Busyness, same, yeah. Yeah, low self-esteem, yeah, okay. And there are lots of, if you Google 3 forms of laziness Buddhism, you'll see all kinds of ways these are described. And you know, and actually I've been doing this for years because I'm trying to work on laziness. It's helpful to sort of see the way different lineages and different people articulate them, and to try to go, is that sloth, or like, which one is that, you know, and see. So not dealing with your laziness, okay, which means, you know, so dealing with your laziness, that's number 2. And prioritizing your life in a meaningful way for your practice. These are the 3 primary practices for joyful effort, okay? Really thinking about how you relate to others and trying to relate to others in a way that's serving them, to deal with your laziness, and to reprioritize your life in a way that energizes you and moves you towards your highest goals. Okay? Happily, joyful effort. This is also sometimes translated as zeal, which is helpful for me, because zeal has a kind of, you know, you should have some energy. And if you've been practicing, these perfections build on each other. If you've been practicing patience, you will have some power. And so as you build up your power through practicing patience, you turn that power into the celebratory joy of working for your goals and the goals of other beings. When you're caught up in your anger, you don't have a lot of energy. It saps your energy because you're thinking about yourself. So because that's one of our main culprits for taking away our life force, our life energy, as we clean up our relationship to patience, we naturally get a lot more energy. And so then we move effortlessly into joy, into joyful effort, and we go, well, now I have all this energy because I'm not so angry anymore. So I'm going to spend time thinking about other people. I'm going to help other people and work towards my spiritual goals, okay? So let's look at how they're traditionally described. Collecting a group of disciples out of gain or honor. So this is specifically, traditionally, related to collecting spiritual students. And this would mean that you somehow would like to have students because you're hoping that you'll get money or you'll get some kind of fame. You know, some part of your mind is like, maybe I'll be the Dalai Lama, right? Or like, maybe I'll have thousands of people coming to Central Park someday, right? That'd be the wrong reason to, you know, to try to collect students. So, you know, the way I think about this on a more meta scale is just moment to moment, because you're either helping someone or you're receiving a teaching. So in any given moment of your life, moment to moment, you're either a teacher or student. And actually, you know, if we were going to do another view of this teaching, I would say you're always the student, okay? But as the student, sometimes you're being asked to be in the role of teacher, because that's a wonderful way to learn. You know, the best way to learn is to teach something. Anyone who's taught anything, it's like then you're really going, oh my God, I have to teach it. So like, do I even know how to do it, right? So you're always the student, but sometimes you're clearly in the role of the student, you're receiving. Sometimes the way you receive is through giving in the role of the teacher, okay? So because you're either in one of these two roles at any given moment of the day, you're always in a space to, in a way, collect disciples. You're always working with someone else. So are you working when anyone that you are relating to, are you relating to them for your own gain, or are you relating to them to help them? Okay. It's easy on a certain level to think about. If you really start to look at it, chances are you will see how challenging that is, you know, and how much self-interest we have moment to moment to moment. And, you know, they say until a very, very high level of spiritual development, the karma is tainted. It's black and white. They say it's mixed. You know, you have part of your mind that's like, no, I really want to help you. And the part of you is going, I hope I can see that I help them. You know, I hope they see that I'm helping them. I'm a good person for helping them. Right? It's mixed. So like, have a little patience with yourself. You know, have some compassion with yourself. But as much as possible, you know, try to tune into the other. The more you can put the attention on the other, the happier you'll be. Okay. You know, the other way to think about this is that it takes a lot of effort to care for students, to care for anyone. And if you're doing that for yourself, you'll burn out really quickly, because you're not going to get what you need, probably, what you think you want, as quickly as you want it. So coming from patience, you need to have the power. You need to have a lot of strength there to go, no, let's keep going, you know. Does anybody teach school, or is anyone in like a sort of formal, you know, like, you know, yeah, great. You know, teaching sort of anything, you might try to articulate something one way and the person's like, don't get it. You go, well, I'll try saying it this way. No, maybe, I don't know. You know, okay, let me try it this way. Right? You just keep trying. You know, if your attention is on them and you want them to learn, you just keep going until they receive what you hope that they receive. You know, you don't go, well, you're stupid because you didn't get it when I said it the first time, right? I mean, sometimes we do that, you know, or some little thing goes up in our mind. We're like, well, I'll say it a different way since you're so dense, you know, that you can't get it. But really, like, I said it perfectly the first time, you know. And as I said earlier, communication is when the other person understands. So if they don't understand, there's been no communication. You have not communicated yet if they don't understand, right? So, okay, so that's this one. Checking in with yourself through the day. You can see, I know this is a lot of practice, and these are lifetimes and lifetimes of practices. So, you know, it's all going in right now, and hopefully you will have the rest of your life to be studying and looking at these, keeping these as vows, hopefully, and going, you know, really slowly with yourself one by one through the days and asking yourself how these relate to you, okay? So if you're starting to feel overwhelmed at any point, just take a nice breath and know that these are You know, we have a long time with these, and probably you have already had a long time, lifetimes of thinking about these. Okay, here we go. Failure to dispel laziness and the like, right? So not dealing with laziness. And we talked about that last week, so I won't go into it so much today. Exceptions here. Oh, you know what? I didn't even put the exceptions, actually. I decided not to today because I find that they're not really exceptions to the vow. They're more, they're actually ways to keep the vow. For instance, if you need to rest, rest. That is a way to combat laziness, actually, as we talked about, right? To really mindfully say, I'm resting now, okay? Out of the desire to be able to serve others. So just to think about, to continue to think about, particularly for this, is how do you procrastinate? What are the ways in which you procrastinate doing the things that you know you really want to be doing for yourself, okay? And some of the practices we do are not that easy straight off. They just aren't. So I think we have some kind of fantasy that comes up sometimes, and this is the other side of laziness, the comfort orientation, that if it doesn't feel good, somehow it's not good or it's not working. But many of the spiritual practices, they're not built to make you feel good. Actually, they're built to reveal your afflictions. They're built to bring you to freedom from your suffering. They're not built to make you comfortable in your status quo. And we misunderstand that. And so then when things become challenging for us, we reject them. Or we go, well, I don't want to meditate. You know, it's too hard to meditate, or it's too hard to look at my anger. You know, it brings up all kinds of stuff. I feel emotion. You know, I don't want to feel these kinds of emotion. I just want to feel good. And that's that earlier vow. So you just want to feel good and, you know, get out of samsara just for yourself. You know, there's no future vision that you have for yourself, okay? So I'm just going to tell you now, because it often happens, you know, after years, several years of practice, you know, students come back to me and they're like, wait a minute. I thought I was going to like be really happy now. Like, I thought this was going to get really easy. It's like, no, it's going to get like harder and harder for a while because you're getting closer and closer. You know, if you read, has anyone read the Inferno? Dante's Inferno? If you ever decide that you want to read a long epic poem, you could read the Inferno. It's beautiful. But you know, Dante's taken through, in the first of the trilogy is the Inferno, he's taken through all these layers of hell. And this is the first step for him to get to the end of the trilogy. He goes to heaven. But first he has to go through and witness all of these afflictions. It's a journey into his own mind. And he goes to, you know, every layer it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And it's like, you know, he's all these moments where he goes, I can't handle it, you know, or he's hearing the screams of the suffering people and he's like vomiting. He can't take it. And, but he goes through. He goes through and he ends up on the other side, you know. This is why this is joyful effort. There wouldn't be a perfection called effort if effort wasn't required. You see, when things are really easy, no effort is required. If everything just makes you feel good, there's no effort there. It's a big deal, right? So this is implying that there's going to be some resistance in your process. So expect that. Expect it full on. And don't be surprised when it comes. And then, you know, this is where that power comes in. Then you have to go, this is important to me. I can meet this. And each time you meet one of those challenges, you become a more powerful person. And you have more power, more energy to offer other people, okay? Really, really key. And celebrate, celebrate, celebrate all the moments where things are easy and joyous. And the more you look at those, the more you'll see that actually the challenging moments, they don't really overcome the wonderful moments. There is a balance through your life. We just often don't look at the good stuff, and we just focus on the challenging stuff, okay? So how are you procrastinating the things that are challenging for you, you know, and start to work on that. The next one here is spending time with busy talk because you enjoy it. So this is relating to anything that's taking you away from your spiritual practice, from your practice of getting clear with your reality and with helping other beings. talking about politics, talking about sex, talking about crime. Basically, if you look on TV, you can see all of what this vow encompasses. Cop shows, what is it like? Cop shows, medical shows, sex shows about sex, basically, you know, the news, and what else? All of reality TV, yeah, reality TV. Any of that, okay? That would sort of encompass busy talk. Busy talk in the sense that it's not communication that is aimed towards actually improving a situation. It's just either distractionary or complaining. So there's no real action towards healing or towards moving closer to another person. It's separating you, okay? And separating you either at the lowest level of just wasting your time, you know, all the way up to separating you by, you know, encouraging rumors and things like that, okay? And we can get very caught up in this. It's, we're all caught up in it to some form or another. And our mind goes to it because it's easy. It doesn't require us to participate. And part of joyful effort, the power of joyful effort, is asking you to participate directly in your life all day long. To be present and to participate with yourself and with other beings. And when we click on the busy talk, we stop participating, actually. We're like, oh, and then Obama did this, and you know, the Republicans are this, and we're not actually participating with them. We're just chatting, just taking up our time, okay? So figure out what it is for you that you tend to go towards, and try to clear that. You know, try to see how it takes you away from your reality. And the clearer you can get that it's painful when you're out of your reality, when you're not connecting, the easier it will be to let those things go. And the more you'll just see, like, why would I want to watch a reality TV show? What's the point? You know, of watching someone pee in the bushes and like talking about how they were pissed off that someone said something to them. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know what's on reality TV shows, but it's just sort of like, it's a waste of time. It's so clearly a waste of time. And, you know, if you want to think of it from the Bodhisattva perspective, you know, not your own sort of what you're looking to do for yourself, is that supporting those kinds of actions for other beings, that is not a meaningful way for those beings to spend their lives. You know, they're hoping they're going to get some fame. They're hoping, like, you know, they're exposing their suffering in a very painful way, actually. You know, they're trying to goad it on so that somehow they'll get better ratings. You know, you're not supporting right livelihood by turning those shows on, you know, or picking up People magazine, or all of those things, you know. So out of compassion for them, out of compassion for all others, don't put the fire there. Take the object away. If everyone stopped watching reality TV, how long do you think reality TV would last for? It would stop within a month if everyone stopped watching, right? If no one participated in internet chat, it would cease. Because the system is built to move towards whatever people are going to buy. That's capitalism. So in a way, we have a lot of power as consumers. What we consume creates that pattern, right? So stop consuming the things that are painful for yourself and others, and those patterns will have to cease. Exceptions here, which again I think are higher ways to keep the vow, but for courtesy or meaningful connection with other people. So, you know, sometimes a way to engage with another and allow them to feel comfortable is to talk about politics, or, you know, to talk about whatever might be sort of off your normal topics. And then the way my teacher describes it, which I appreciate, is to not appear as a complete weirdo. So, you know, in this sense is that, and I've had this experience several times, you know, as you get more and more prioritized in your life and you're really studying your spiritual life and those become your focus, you're not so caught up on current events. I have no idea what movies are playing, you know, it's not like I have some pride about that, it's just the case. I'm just not informed about those things. And I do come up in certain situations where someone brings something up and I'm like, never heard of it, you know, and they're sort of like, really? you know, and I can see that it makes them suspicious about me, and I go, that's not helpful for them, you know. So out of a desire to connect, I try to maintain some awareness of what's going on in the world, you know, but to the level that I feel like I can participate in like a day-to-day social conversation with someone. If I met someone in Starbucks or something and they didn't know anything about Mahasukha Center, what would I talk to them about? You know, what would come up for them? And at least you might want to know that there are Democrats and Republicans. You know, you might want to know that we have a president or something like that. You might want to know the president's name, something like that, right? No, I mean, I'm still like, people that have been in retreat for 3 years, they don't know any of this. They don't know who's been elected. It's not on their radar. They're going internally, right? So as bodhisattvas, we're trying to work outwardly a bit more. My mother's always appalled by my level of knowledge of current events. She's like, I know you're meditating a lot, but really, darling, you should know about this. And I go, okay. Or then she calls my partner and she's like, David, can you please catch Mira up on what's going on in the world, because I'm worried about her. All right, so those are the 3 of joyful effort. So I'll just move through the 3 of meditative concentration. And then again, I would ask you in some time this week to just go back through these, and if questions come up, we can talk about them in more detail when we come back next week. So meditation perhaps are the easiest practices of all, okay, the 3 of meditation. Here's what it looks like. Practice meditation, deal with your obstacles to meditation, and don't get attached when your meditation starts to go really well. Those are the practices of meditation. Learn how to meditate and meditate. When you start to meditate, you're going to immediately recognize how many obstacles you have to meditating. So deal with your obstacles. Once you've dealt with your obstacles to meditation, your meditation is going to start to go better, and you're going to really start to enjoy meditation. And then there's the challenge of you start to go, my meditation's awesome. And then you start to meditate just to feel good. That's not the reason to meditate. The reason to meditate is to come into union with reality. And that requires extraordinary concentration. And if you get caught up in the pleasant sensations, you go away actually from the concentration that's moving you forward into your practice, okay? So we can go through them in the traditional way, but that's basically what it is. So failing to seek the meaning of meditative concentration. So this means you don't learn how to meditate. If someone's teaching meditation, you don't go. We're bringing, in the fall, we're bringing Doug Veenhoff back to teach on shamatha. So that would be a really good opportunity to go to that weekend and to learn about stillness meditation. We have meditation classes here regularly, etc. There's hours of teachings online to learn how to meditate. So you learn and you do it. Exceptions are if you're sick, very challenging to meditate when you're really sick. If the person teaching for you doesn't appear reputable. It's getting towards the end of class. So, you know, it's just to ask yourself, like, does this person have a lineage? You know, do I trust that this person knows? Because when we're talking about meditation, we're talking about your mind, okay? This is no small thing. We're talking about how you're relating to your mind. So if someone's teaching you how to meditate, how to concentrate your mind and to purify your mind, you better feel like that person, one, actually knows how to meditate themselves, has some practice, and two, has your best interests in mind. Like they're not just trying to get money from you, or they're not just trying to whatever, okay? And who knows what's really going on with them, but from your own view. And then my favorite exception is that if you've completely mastered meditation, then you don't have to go to anybody's class on meditation. You should be teaching meditation, please, okay? So that's sort of a natural exception to this vow. You are the perfection of meditation, so don't worry about seeking the perfection of meditation. The next one is failing to purge yourself of the obstacles. And I've put here the traditional 5 obstacles and their helpful antidotes. So you can take a look at those, and I won't go over those right now, but they're pretty straightforward. And If you have questions about these practices, ask me next week, and I can guide you to audio or other classes that might be happening that are teaching these antidotes. But you know, our first, this is assuming you've actually started to meditate. But our first obstacle is just getting on the cushion in the first place, right? And in a way, you can look at these and say, those hurt us too. If we're overcome with desire, we probably won't sit down. If we're angry with someone, we're probably going to spend time thinking about that and not sitting down, etc. But those can then continue on when you're sitting. So just try to get yourself to the cushion to start. And then, as I mentioned, considering the pleasant sensation of meditation to be an important personal attainment. So you can see there's attachment there. Now, this is not to say that if you're enjoying your meditation, you shouldn't be celebrating. You know, if you have a wonderful meditation, great. You know, celebrate that. But if you get attached, again, it's not rational. The reason why you had a good meditation that day is not so direct to like, oh, well, it's because I ate almond butter before I meditated, and you know, it's 6 a.m. instead of 7, and that's why I had a good meditation. Those aren't the causes, you know. And chances are the next time you meditate, it won't be that pleasant. Or maybe it'll be pleasant for a month, and then it's going to get really hard because you've gotten to a level of your mind that you cleared out, and then you drop to the next level of affliction. So if you get attached to it, it should feel good all the time, and that's why you're meditating. You're going to be sorely disappointed, and you're going to give it up. But in a way, meditation is built, it's built to be challenging, again, because you're trying to go through these layers of your mind, okay? So I'm also not saying expect it to be challenging, but just keep going forward. Just keep going no matter what. If it's hard, do it. If it's easy, do it. And enjoy the times that it's easy, and enjoy the times that are hard because you're really working with something that you need to work through. All right? So we went through a lot today. We went through four perfections? 3 perfections. 4 perfections. Ethics, patience, joyful effort, and meditation. All right? So next week we're going to focus on wisdom, and then there are some sort of cleanup practices that you get after that. And for the coming week, you can take a look at these, and again, just thinking about prioritizing, how you're prioritizing your life, and really looking at that for yourself without making big judgments quite yet. But just asking yourself, you know, is your daily life arranged in a way that's really supporting your highest interests? And if it's not, what shifts could you make? What shifts do you imagine that you could make realistically right now? So you can sort of have 2 lists. You can have, here are things I can do right now. I can definitely get up a half hour earlier so I have time to meditate, or something like that, right? I cannot turn on the TV or my computer for 2 hours before I go to bed. And I can use that time to quiet myself, to just enjoy my surroundings, maybe have a conversation if I live with someone, a meaningful conversation, and not put more info in. Something, you know, I don't know, you have to think about for yourself. And then you can make a list of things that you feel like, I can't do yet, but I would like to do, whatever that might be. I'd like to have at least 2 days off a week from working where I can just focus on my spiritual practice and a day off to play. So I'd like to have 3 full days off a week, or something like that, right? I'd like to have a month each year to go into retreat. I don't know, right? And then if you make those lists, maybe if you don't mind or you feel comfortable sharing, we can each share one thing that's on our list of things that we don't feel like we can do immediately, and we can talk about what the practice might be to be able to bring that into your life in an easy way, okay? And while you're doing all that, be inspired. Look for inspiration this week, which is a fun practice. So from now till next Wednesday, just look for inspiration in others and in yourself, and allow yourself to ride on the energy of that inspiration, okay? And if you have the opportunity, tell others. Say, that was so beautiful what you just did. That really inspired me. Thank you. You know, and share and make an effort to extend out. All right? So let's do a quick dedication. Take a nice deep breath. So you can start by feeling inspired by yourself that you made the effort to come to class today, whether it was joyous or not. You made it here. Sat here for 3 hours. You received all of these amazing practices, such a wealth of practices raining down. And feel really joyous that you are yourself, that you came today. Be inspired by that model. In this moment, you're modeling something really meaningful for yourself. Feel happy about that. And make a prayer in your heart that as you go through the week until we meet again, that you can continue to model in meaningful ways for those around you. And that you can see that inspiration spread across all the people you meet with, that you can receive their inspiration and their good models. And that all of the negative, painful models just start to easily fall away. And through your efforts today, you create a joyous, inspired world where people are open and helping each other with great joy. Okay. Thank you so much for coming. It's really meaningful to me to have you come week after week and to be able to study these things more deeply. It's really helpful for me, and I'm very grateful. So